Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I think we've still got a few people coming through, but if you want to grab a seat, not for my benefit, but there are better speakers than me that you might want to be prepared for. So, good morning to everyone, and welcome to the first ever Six and Flow Growth Summit. This has been 6 months in the making, and a lot of hard work has gone in from a lot of people across the Six and Flow team. Special shout out, you will see her running around, she looks a little bit stressed this morning, but to Sarah Moonjay, who has put a lot of effort in. She is our market. A lot of you would have heard from her in communications. Thank you very much, Sarah. Oh, actually there are some slides. Somewhere. Dave. Dave, push the button. So 2.5 years ago, coming out of COVID, we decided that we were going to bring our global team to Manchester so we could spend a bit of time together, do a bit of learning, have a lot of fun, and just generally be together. And that's carried on over the last 2 years, where every year we bring the global team in, we spend a week of, we now refer to as our growth week, we spend a week together. There's a lot of fun, games, learning. Historically, we've brought in some external speakers. And this year, we decided that we were going to open it up to everybody else. So there's a lot of partners, friends, customers from across Europe in the room today. But we wanted everybody else to experience this with us. And we also wanted to do it in a way that isn't going to be like a normal conference. So hence why we are sat in one of Manchester's most loved music venues. It's not because it's immediately across the road from our office, but it is going to be a fun day. We didn't want to just sit around white tablecloth tables, so hopefully it will be fun for everybody. We have some incredible speakers lined up for you today. These are all people that I genuinely respect and follow and have kind of engaged with over the years. Some of them have become good friends because of that, but I'm excited that you guys get to experience them as well. Some quick housekeeping. If you need the bathroom, it is out to the left and down the stairs, and there are no fire drills planned. If there's a fire alarm, please run out of the building screaming towards one of the green signs. I don't know where the assembly point is. I assume it's over the road. Right. Because this is a GTM conference, the team have asked me to ask you to share photos on LinkedIn and Instagram. Nobody really gives a shit about Twitter anymore, so don't worry about it. So please do share. We are super interested to see how people are finding the day, and I do believe there's some spot prizes. I may have made that up, but try it and we'll see what happens. This event could not have happened without our headline sponsor, Dialpad. They have made today possible for us, and there are a bunch of them in the room today, so please do take some time to spend with them. The impact that AI can have across your business is incredible. I'm not just saying that as a sales pitch. You should speak to them. They will pitch it way better than I can. There is a few of them, Aubrey, Zax, and Sid are in the room. I'm not going to make them stand up. I can't even see where they are, but they are here. And also HubSpot. So HubSpot have supported us incredibly with the lead up to this. We have some great speakers from HubSpot as well. We also have Lisa, who has been a long-time champion of Six and Flow. Gary, I see you as well, but she's more important. And then now it is my duty to hand over to a very good friend of mine, actually. See, I said I was going to say some nice things. A man who, whether he realizes it or not, has had a huge impact on an entire generation of marketers. And as much as I have tried over the years to disprove it, he is one of the most loveliest men in the industry. And he knows a lot about the GTM space, and he is going to share some of that with us. So please help me welcome Joe up to the stage. Joe, over to you.
Hello everyone. That was very 9 a.m. in the morning. Can we try again? Good morning everyone. That's much better. That was the nicest things Rich has ever said about me, so he's usually horrible. So anyway, my name is Joe Glover. I'm 32 years and 153 days old. For those at the back, this is what I look like. For those of you at the front, you know what the reality is. So today we're going to speak about how to keep your customers and turn them into your biggest advocates. I can't see any of you because of the lights, so like if I do a horrible job, you can swear, and I won't know. And I wanted to start off by just being honest, really, which is that I came to today and I was a little bit nervous. I was nervous because of the everything amazing that Rich has done, how amazing all of you are, and the knowledge that you've got in your head. And I didn't want to come here and sort of say, like, you need to know these things and they're going to blow your mind in this magical way. But last week I was so lucky because I had the opportunity to interview Seth Godin. And Seth spoke about this idea of craft. And the idea of craft being one where you choose to be better at something than what you would get away with. And I found that a really profound quote because I think so often with marketing things, particularly with the fundamentals, we choose to take them as a given. We take them as a moment to go, yeah, cool, everyone knows this, and then we move past that into like the really shiny stuff. And so I wanted to just take us back, to relax our shoulders a little bit, to begin the day. We're going to hear some amazing things, and sort of just look at a little bit of the craft of marketing, the very, very basics, and take us back to the very beginning on some things that will just like absolutely sort of like lay the foundation for what I think is really successful marketing, and particularly a topic which I don't think is covered enough, which is about keeping the folks you've got rather than just trying to bring new folks in. And my hope is whether you're in B2B, B2C, or whether you're in accountants or a fashion brand, there's something you can take away from today. And so this is the way that we're going to do it today. We're going to start off with a quick story. So this is the story of the marketing meetup. We're then going to go into 2 marketing concepts, 3 thoughts on retention, and 3 thoughts on advocacy before we choose to wrap up. The dad jokes don't get any better. So let's start with the story. The year was 2016, and I was a solo marketer working in a small company. I knew that I wanted to meet other marketers and learn about marketing. But the thought of coming to an event like this just absolutely terrified me. And it is partially because I'm way more introverted than I am extroverted. Walking into a space like this is a scary thing to do. To say hello to people, to break into those circles, the noise, the sounds, the coffee, it's a lot. But it's also the dynamic that exists in the room, which is like, you say hello to someone, you pluck up the courage to say hello to someone, and then they judge your humanity by your job title or your budget and try to sell some marketing shit to you that you really don't want. Ultimately, I was like, nah, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do any more marketing stuff. Or at least I can't attend what already exists out there. And so it's clear that something kinder needed to enter the world. And so on the 11:01 train from Cambridge to London, that's not a real train, storytelling purposes, the marketing meetup was born, and something new entered the world. The logo looks a bit like this now. It didn't look like that at the beginning. It was on paint. That's a puppy to represent something new, but if you prefer kittens, here's a kitten. The marketing meetup looks a little bit like this, and this was actually taken, these photos are taken from our Manchester event. Lovely people getting together, enjoying each other's company, eating pizza and beer, and just having a really nice time. And we speak about 3 things at every event: listening, saying hello, and being positively lovely. The last one is the most British phrase in the world, by the way. As I stood at the front of our New York event and said, be positively lovely, they almost laughed me out the room. But it was good. Fast forward a few years from 2016, and the marketing meetup now, instead of 1 event, is 143. Instead of 1 location, we do stuff from London to Tokyo. Instead of me, some pizza and beer, there's about 50,000 of us across the world, with about 250,000 following us on socials. But most importantly, a scared and alone marketer was suddenly able to take some other folks on a journey of confidence, which is really just soul-filling stuff, really. Now, why am I telling you this? Why is this important? Well, over the past 8 years, we've spent about £3,149.98 on paid ads over the course of those entire 8 years. The rest of the time, everything has grown from our newsletter and has grown from folks telling other folks about the marketing meetup and our existence and that sort of advocacy piece. That organic growth has been incredible, and it couldn't have happened without a lot of good people. And so for the rest of today's talk, I just want to share some thoughts on how we've done it, hopefully in the idea that it might inspire you too. So before we get going, we need to establish two things. Very, very, very simple marketing fundamentals, but you know what? They are important, and I think it's worth revisiting these things, because if you don't get them right, everything else goes to rubbish. So the first thought is about positioning. Now this is Chris Anderson. Chris runs TED Talks, and Chris has this lovely idea about a talk, which is that a speaker stands on stage and they're there to build an idea in the mind of the customer, in the mind of the audience member. And we can do the same with our customers as well. So really positioning is this idea of establishing a memorable idea in the minds of the folks that we're trying to reach. If there's a blue ocean of opportunity, then why are they going to pick you? Now, for me, positioning is broken down into two very, very simple stuff. You've got distinctiveness and you've got differentiation. Distinctiveness is looking like yourself, and differentiation is looking different from other folks. If we go into that a little bit further, you've got two sort of people who speak about this regularly, Byron Sharp and Mark Ritson. Distinctiveness, so what are the things that are visually differentiating ourselves from other folks? What's our tone of voice, and what are you for? So distinctiveness is like you showing up, the Six and Flow logo. In fact, we've got some examples here. So the Tiffany blue, the Manchester United logo. Sorry, I'm a red. We've got the Starbucks cups. If you ever walk down the high street, you smell Lush before you see it. And the Google logo. These are all examples of things which are distinctive assets. You know these things, you know what the company are. And then you've got stuff like differentiation. Now, this differentiation argument is one that's been massively overblown over the entire time. What we're not speaking about is making you unique. Unique is hard. There are so many companies out there in the world who do similar things to you that really unique is not going to be the thing that makes you win. Differentiation, though, is therefore a relative thing. I am taller than you, I am smaller than you, we are bigger, we are larger, we are faster. These are comparison points. They're opportunities to differentiate. We're not saying that we own being tall, but we are saying that we are taller or smaller. So relatively, what are the things that make us relatively different from the alternatives? How do we solve the problem better? How are you different? It's not about being unique, it's about being you. And so, I don't know whether there's going to be sound in this, but to give a quick example. From the world's best Christmas film. So that's the first time you've seen that in July. The coffee shop there didn't choose to differentiate themselves on being the most plush. They didn't say that we're the best world's best coffee shop. The thing they chose to differentiate themselves there was on the world's best coffee. And therefore, that's the thing that Elf celebrated. I think there's a better example though here with Asana versus Monday. So this is what happens if you go to the Monday.com website. They go to the top and you see a comparison between the two. Monday isn't saying we are in totality the only people who do this thing. We're saying we're going to choose these attributes that make us different. So here they say we're better at meeting requirements, we're easier to use, we're easier to do admin with, we've got better quality of support, and we've got ease of doing business with, whatever that means. But all these things build up and suddenly you've got a differentiated product. This all layers into your positioning. And ultimately this is important because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as marketers is showing up consistently in the same shape again and again. It's something we all get challenged to do, but like at the end of the day, our brands are like the thing that we work on every day. Sometimes it gets boring, but this consistency is where we win when it comes to positioning. It's this quote from Byron Sharp, just to re-emphasize it. The job of the marketer is to show up in the same shape again and again. That's how you build an idea in the mind of your customers. Now, Louis Grenier has a wonderful way to speak about your positioning. This statement, I think, is like the intermediate advanced way to express your positioning in such a lovely way. It's super concise. And he breaks it down into, we are the only brand in a certain category to solve specific needs for a segment that the alternatives do not. So to give an example with a marketing meetup, that could be something like, we're the only marketing community to provide positively lovely education and networking for marketers who don't like networking, unlike other marketing events. No. For Apple, this could be, we're the only tech manufacturer to mix art and technology for tech consumers, unlike other mobile devices. And for an event I spoke at recently, we're the only event to provide a sense of community and modern marketing advice for business owners in Jersey, unlike other marketing events. This would be a fabulous positioning statement. But I think there's an even quicker way that we can get to this, which is a reminder that our brands are tiny, tiny little things in the mind of the customer. No one is walking down the street and thinking about the marketing meetup. Nobody's unfortunately walking down the street and thinking about Six and Flow all that regularly. We've got busy things to do. Our minds are full with admin, with our kids, with our dog walks, with our football clubs, or whatever it may be. That's very unique to me. I think I've just sort of described my life. Anyway, our brands are tiny things. So Mark Ritson proposes this idea. You have 3 brain cells that are dedicated to your company or brand. And these 3 brain cells can be attributes that are differentiated, or they can be attributes that are relatively distinct. And you've got to choose what those 3 brain cells are in relation to your company. Can you narrow down your positioning so much that you could choose those 3 brain cells and show up with them again and again and again and again, and build that idea, just as Chris Henderson says, to build that idea of what your position is in the market. This stuff is important because at the end of the day, you walk around any tech conference in the world and there will be every company in the world who's describing themselves as innovative or disruptive or whatever it is. They don't own these things and therefore they just don't stand out. It becomes a bland sea of everyone saying the same things. What are the things that you can own that positionally will make you stand out? And really that's a challenge. After today, can you nail those 3 things? What are those 3 brain cells that feels important? Second concept that feels important, the funnel. Now, I think most people will be aware of the funnel in the room, hopefully, but if you're not, then like what we sort of speak about in marketing is often breaking down the customer journey into different stages so folks can, you can interact with folks in different ways. There's so many funnels out there. I mean, this is an example, ADA, awareness, interest, desire, and action. I think, however, that this funnel is misleading because it kind of reinforces this idea that marketing is just sales, isn't it? You know, marketing stops at a sale. But for me, this idea of marketing is actually far bigger. I break it down into this largely inaccurate equation, which is their problem, so the customer, plus your solution, so your product, and then you kind of communicate it in there. And there's bunches of things in there, but like at the very, very fundamental level, this is my completely incorrect, but also quite useful marketing equation. And Rory Sutherland reinforces this idea, which is marketing is the lens of the customer in the company, which means to say that like everything a customer touches, marketing should have some influence, or at the very least an opinion, whether that's your positioning or trying to understand what folks are actually thinking about you. So a far more useful way of thinking about it is the funnel. And I've called it the funnel of doom because it makes it seem more fun. So, you know, breaking it down into 5 stages: awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, advocacy. And why is this important? Well, it's these last 2 stages. Marketing isn't just sales in it. Marketing has these other things. You've got retention, you've got advocacy. And like when you start to think about it like that, stuff like customer service, I think, is one of the greatest forms of marketing there possibly is. And you start thinking about these things if you put retention and advocacy into the mix. So some examples of retention, you've got stuff like reward programs, newsletters, MVP programs, customer service, or frankly, incentivization through stuff like money. Advocacy could look like your reviews, people posting on LinkedIn, or just word of mouth. And like, I don't believe these stats. They're probably made up by someone, but I put them on the screen because they look impressive. But it's something like 5 to 25% cheaper to retain the customers you have, which seems like a sensible thing to do. And people are 4 times more likely to buy when recommended to something, which, you know, if we just take the broader principles, it seems like a sensible thing to do from a marketing perspective. We're speaking about growth today, and you can't grow without keeping the folks you have and turning them into advocates. And for the record, I'm not speaking about brand love. I don't expect people to love your brand. Like, you don't get loving around the marketing meetup or Nike. It's not love. But what we're speaking about is just giving ourselves the best shot that some people will speak about your stuff and at the end of the day sort of spread that message. So really, I want to sort of start with this idea that the best customers you have are probably the ones you've already got and probably the people that they're going to speak about and tell other people around. To give a quick analogy, I used to work at an e-commerce agency, and like every client who came in, despite me posting every blog post under the sun, doing the social media stuff, by the time they arrived, it felt like they were like friends already. And it was so deeply frustrating because my boss, my director, was like, "Oh yeah, I've brought in another client. You know, it's Steve from Victoria Beckham or whatever," and it's like, yeah, I get that, but you know, this thing only happened because of that advocacy that happened. That's marketing too. So there's a challenge that we asked ourselves at the marketing meetup a long time ago. You know, what does retention look like? What does advocacy look like? And then we started setting about trying to figure out what those things actually do. So we've started to come together with these two concepts. We've got consistently applying positioning. We've got this idea that retention and advocacy start happening, and in the middle, that's where the magic happens. So how do you do it? Well, I'm going to give you 3 examples from both the retention and advocacy stages that we've implemented, just to share an experience, and hopefully it might set off something in your brain as well that makes you think about it too. So from the retention point, we're going to speak about gathering data, we're going to speak about listening and adapting, and we're going to speak about sweating the small stuff. So let's start off with data capture. I don't know why those slides were there, so I'm going to move past them. In 2020, COVID hit. So we've been running 130 events that year. I'd just gone full-time on the marketing meetup in April 2019. We were an events company, so like we were running all these events. But in a second, all those events went up in a flash. We couldn't no longer run these things because instead of going out, everyone was staying in. But we had an ace in the hole. And that ace in the hole was a MailChimp list with 2,367 people on it. And with that MailChimp list, we're able to do things like this. This is probably the most proud email that I've sent from a marketing meetup, which is just an email which went out to those 2,367 people at the beginning of COVID and simply said, "Are you okay?" And on that day, in the spirit of true community, I got 200 replies. And every one of those 200 replies got 200 replies back. You know, we spent the time going through them to help the folks out. But what we were also able to do was take a moment and look at and do stuff like this, which was launch our webinar program. So the community was those 2,367 people then, and now it's a lot more. But over the last 3 years, we've launched a webinar program that has people like Seth Godin, Mark Ritson, Rory Sutherland, and so many more, the global head of marketing of the Olympic Games. And we never would have been able to achieve that if we hadn't had the thought about capturing data. Now, the problem here is that when we think about this, for most marketers, we spend most of our time doing stuff like this. We write down things at the bottom of our websites which say, "Sign up for the latest news and updates from our company." Who the bloody hell wants latest news and updates from anyone? Like, I've written these lines, but the impression that gives is that we're just going to take your data and we're probably going to sell it. So there has to be a value exchange. And so today we're going to hear from Harry Dry later on today, and I think he does this absolutely wonderfully. The thing that Harry is thinking about most and first and foremost is clarity and value. So at the top here, this is his sign-up page, which simply says, get 6 new tips in your inbox every Monday. There is so much clarity about what you are going to be getting in exchange for your data the regularity on which you're going to be receiving it, the humanity in it, and it certainly is a very far long way from someone saying get the latest news and updates in your inbox. Likewise, we've got Dave Harland here who speaks about getting tips on unconventional copywriting techniques and ridiculous stories. And he even includes elements of social proof, sort of speaking about 21,143 people also getting these updates. There's a reassurance there that Dave Harlan gives, there's a reassurance that Harry gives, and there's a very, very clear value exchange. They've started to invest in the craft of marketing, in the craft of retaining their customers, rather than just assuming that it's going to happen. And the thing is, this doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be fancy. This is my local coffee shop. It's really nice. It's called The Yard. And what they do is that every time I go for a coffee, they say, what's your name? You say Joe. And they give me 5p off. And over the course of time, that 5p accumulates in my account to one day I will receive a free coffee. 5 pence for this exchange of data. And I can tell you, on the day that I get that free coffee, it is going to be the sweetest coffee that I have ever had in my entire life. These things don't need to be expensive, but they know that my buying habits now exist. They can probably say what my favourite coffee is. They can probably say what days I tend to turn up, all because of a 5p exchange. There's a bit of thoughtfulness there, but it's starting to invest in the craft of retention. So how can you capture data while being useful? Let's not just think about capturing data. Let's think about the value exchange. Again, I'm not saying anything mind-blowing, but so many of us fall into the trap of the latest news and updates. How can we make this better? The second thing on retention is asking and adapting. So over the past three years, Marketing Meetup's developed over 200 hours of content free for marketing people to attend. At the end of last year, we started seeing a slight dip in our webinar attendance. And so we started asking people, what's going on? What's the deal? And the thing what we were doing was that we were putting out batches of 16 webinars at a time and saying, come along to them. And there were just a random assortment of things. So, you might get a talk on growth, and then you might get something about SEO tactics or whatever it may be. And so we asked folks, what can we do better? And they said the thing that we're struggling with really right now is that we're really struggling to deal with budgets. I mean, hey, right now it's a really tough spot in the economy, as we all know. We're dealing with budgets, we're dealing with cuts, we're having a horrible time of things. And so we decided, instead of this generic theme of content, we decided to put something around doing a lot on a little. This idea that everyone right then was suffering. And there's no way that we would have done that unless we'd gone out and interviewed folks and found out what was really happening. The result of that over the past year is our webinar sign-ups. We're now getting 1,500 people a week signing up for our events, which is 30% up year on year. We're taking the time to listen to folks. Again, not anything wild. We just went out and interviewed folks. We watched on LinkedIn, and then we adapted. Not crazy, but useful. And then the final thing on retention, sweating the small stuff. And this feels really important when we're relating to the idea of positioning that we established earlier. So, to give an example of sweating the small stuff, this is a restaurant in the States. And when a customer walks into the restaurant, they say, have you ever been here before? If the person says yes, they get a green napkin. If the person says no, they get a red napkin. They get taken to their table, they get sat down by their server, they say, we'll be back in a minute. The server disappears, the next server comes back. If they get a green napkin, the person walks in and they go, hey, it's lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. What would you like? I know that you've been here before, so did you have a good time last time, etc., etc. If they get a red napkin, all of a sudden the experience changes radically. They say, welcome, it's your first time. So lovely to see you. There's a visual cue that the waiters have given one another to be able to change the experience radically based on a very, very simple question asked at the very beginning of the experience. That's sweating the small stuff. That's caring about the micro moments along the journey which fundamentally shift the experience for the customers. And the good news is there are so many opportunities to sweat the small stuff in our businesses. Whether it's the Wi-Fi name as people walk in, whether it's the Wi-Fi page when they have to log into your guest experience, whether it's the smell of your office, whether it's the pens you use, whether it's how you answer the phone, every one of these are opportunities along the customer journey to layer in your positioning. You've got 3 brain cells dedicated to you. At the Marketing Meetup, we only want one of those brain cells because we speak about positively lovely. So how can we make our Wi-Fi name the most positively lovely Wi-Fi name in the absolute world? This is sweating the small stuff. This is the stuff that cumulatively creates an experience which fundamentally shifts and creates like the best marketing experience that we can possibly offer. So practically how we did this is we broke down every step that folks will go down when they interact with the Marketing Meetup. Here we've got the sponsor flow. So we've got several different flows for each of our different consumer groups. Sponsors is one of them. We broke down every interaction that we may have with a sponsor, and then we said, how can we layer our positioning into the experience and make it feel like a positively lovely experience? At the end of the day, we ended up with an experience which feels very much like a Marketing Meetup experience. It feels distinct and uniquely, or not uniquely, relatively differentiated, and it feels like us. This is how we retain our folks because they have a Marketing Meetup experience and not someone else's experience. I think this is probably one of the most useful experiences that we've ever done as a business. So a challenge for you, if this feels like something that's useful, is to go away at the end of the day with the rest of your teams and just break down an experience of one of your customers into 15 steps. If you can do 15, that's great. If you can do 20, do 20. If you can do 30, do 30. And then ask the question, how can you sprinkle that bit of magic into your experience along the way? I bet there's probably 1 or 2 little tweaks, even for an established business, which would elevate what you do. Next, let's speak about advocacy, because it's important. So, the 3 things that we've done at the Marketing Meetup is we've created peaks of activity, we've asked folks, and we've provided opportunities through the brand experience for folks to advocate for us. Oh, this is when the thing stops working. So, the first thing that we've done is create peaks of activity. So we've acknowledged partway through the talk that our brands are tiny, tiny little things. Our brands are small things that people don't really speak about, as challenging as of an idea as that is for us as marketers. So how do we make our brands big things in the minds of our customer? Well, the thing that we've experienced is creating peak moments. Now for us, that looks like the events that we put on. Once every 2 months, say in Manchester, folks can come along to our events, and for 2 hours at a time, the Marketing Meetup is a big thing in their mind because they're at the Marketing Meetup. They're thinking about our event, they're at our event, they're experiencing those things. But for you, it might look a little bit different. It might be events, it might be promotions, it might be speeches. Whatever it is, there are moments which you can build these peaks of advocacy, these peaks of engagement, where folks are looking at your brand, they're engaging in your brand. Rich is doing it today with Six and Flow. You probably weren't thinking about Six and Flow 3 weeks ago. You might be today. And this is what happens. If we're trying to speak about advocacy, you get stuff like this. You get people speaking about your brand when Emily wouldn't have been speaking about our brand the day before. But once you've started to do that and created those peak moments, the next thing to do is ask. Give people a direction. So don't just say, will you speak about us? Make it as specific as possible. So at the beginning of every Marketing Meetup webinar, we say 2 things. We set a challenge. We say, will you keep the chat feature buzzing, and will you share on social media your biggest takeaway from today's session? YouTubers, they say, please like and subscribe. But for you, you might be able to start asking stuff like, do you know anyone who our product is useful for? We found that really useful in the agency that we used to do, because like e-commerce people spoke to other e-commerce people. They say, do you know anyone else who's suffering with this right now? And they go, actually, yeah, you know, that person was. And that's how we got the intro. That would never have happened if we didn't ask for the advocacy. We get stuff like, would you mind asking on social? That felt really important for us. That's how we've grown. LinkedIn has been very kind to the Marketing Meetup over the years. And if you can't get that, you know, if your brand isn't one of those brands where people want to do that, then sort of say, okay, and here's an incentive. Is it 5% off? Is it a 5p off your next coffee? Whatever it is, being very specific with the ask is a great one. A great ask is a specific ask, and that's part of the magic when it comes to advocacy, in my opinion. So, layer in those two thoughts, creating peak moments and then asking for advocacy. During a peak moment, how can you be very, very specific what you want folks to do? And then the last sort of idea on advocacy is creating those opportunities even when you're not asking. So this is a hotel over in San Francisco. There are many hotels in San Francisco, but this one is special. And it's not special for the pillows, and it's not special for the rooms, but what it is special for is this, which is a popsicle helpline, which is situated next to the swimming pool in the hotel. And what happens is, if a child walks up to the phone and picks up the phone, they can ask for a popsicle to be bought, which is subsequently bought to said child by a member of staff. It's a moment of like sheer lunacy and loveliness, but at the end of the day, it's the type of thing which a hotel by every other manner is very average, elevates it to number 11 out of 419 hotels in the local area. These are moments which you've created a little bit of magic for someone, and therefore people are speaking about the brand in a magical way. Now, I've got a confession on this, which is I bloody hate roller banners. Like, they're fiddly, they always look crap. No one ever does them well. And I resisted for years and years and years and years at marketing meetup events to ever have a roller banner. But then at the end, our organisers said, you know what we really want is a roller banner. So I relented and we got some. And the weirdest thing happened, which is people started taking photos next to our roller banners. And they started speaking about these things even when we weren't asking them to. And this was an opportunity to create advocacy even when we weren't asking. The final example I think I'll give of this is thinking about looping in together all of the different things that we've spoken about today. The idea of positioning, the idea of sweating the small stuff, the idea of creating advocacy when folks aren't asking for it. With this, which is an email confirmation. So this is from CD Baby, a company that sort of operated in the early 2000s by a guy called Derek Sivers. Derek Sivers is the world's loveliest man. He is so calm. He's got one of those voices that needs to be on Headspace. But this is their email confirmation. And I'll read it out to you because it's beautiful. So Derek wrote down these words saying, "Thank you for your order with CD Baby. Your CD has been gently taken from our CD Baby shelves in a sterilized, contamination-free gloves and placed onto a satin pillow. A team of 50 employees inspected your CD and polished it to make sure it was in the best possible condition before mailing. A packing specialist from Japan lit a candle and hush fell over the crowd as he put your CD into the finest gold-lined box that money could buy. We all had a wonderful celebration afterwards, and the whole party marched down the street to the post office where the entire town of Portland waved bon voyage to your package on its way to you in our private CD Baby jet on this day, Friday, June the 6th. I'm sure you had a wonderful time shopping at CD Baby. We sure did. Your picture is on our wall as Customer of the Year. We're all exhausted, but we can't wait for you to come back to cdbaby.com. Thank you once again, Derek Sivers, President of CD Baby, the little store with the best new independent music." It's fabulous. And you know the funny thing about this? Someone picked up on this on Reddit. It went viral. And I'm not saying this is the sole reason why this happened, but subsequently, CD Baby was sold for $20 million, and he created a wildly successful business. This is attention to detail. This is positioning. This is sweating the small stuff. This is retention. And it worked as an advocacy play. These are the foundations that build businesses that grow. These are the foundations that create businesses that succeed. This is fabulous marketing. So how can you create moments for advocacy, even when you're not looking for them? So let's wrap up. Sorry. So we start with a story, our marketing meetup. We then spoke about two marketing concepts. We spoke about positioning in the funnel. We then spoke about 3 thoughts on retention, on gathering data, on sweating the small stuff, listening and adapting. And then we had 3 thoughts on advocacy, which creating peaks, asking for the advocacy, and creating opportunities for people to speak about you, even when they're not thinking about you or even when you're not asking. And with that, that's the wrap up done. So thank you very much for listening. My name's Joe Glover, and thank you for taking the time today.
You want to ask questions or not?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Joe? I think we do have some microphones out there that we can dash around. Does anybody get any questions? We've got a couple minutes. Where are our microphones? Somewhere?
All right.
Go on, Robbie. It's your time to shine.
No, I have the microphone, not questions.
We can't actually see. Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
So what's the worst thing to ask any British audience ever? Like,
Honestly. There we go. Well done, Poppy.
honestly, by the way, if I seem really unsmiling there, it's because I can't see your faces. So.
What's your advice for writing with authenticity, like with 3 lines, but it's slightly more corporate?
I think you have to, any good marketer realizes that we are a catalyst. We're not actually that important. You know, we're not the one that needs to be in the middle of the frame here. The customer needs to be in the middle of the frame. And with that thought in mind, like, we start channeling the idea of what the customer wants. And so authenticity to us can be one thing, but the thing we're trying to reflect, the thing that we're trying to actually think about is what authenticity looks like for them. And so probably the challenge isn't so much what is authentic to us in all occasions. I think Rich and I, we probably have like founder's prerogative to a certain extent because we're trying to craft the narrative as we go, but in most times we're just trying to reflect back to the customer what they want. And so asking the question to the customer, what do you like? What do you value? What feels important? Those are probably the authentic points that we want to be touching upon. The only magic I think here is that I think there is I use the word generosity. Actually last week in the interview with Seth Godin, he used the word empathy, which is, when I sat in the e-commerce agency, I actually couldn't care less about e-commerce. But the thing I did care about was creating those little fist bump moments at people's desks where they got a promotion or their results went well, or like they looked really good in front of their boss or whatever it may be. And so I think the first stage is having awareness of what folks want, what they need. And then the second thing is having that generosity mindset, that empathy, and saying, how can we elevate you? And I think there's probably a magic in between those 2 concepts, which really starts to mean that authenticity, a bit of humanity. Probably the word humanity is probably the one I'd inject here more than authenticity starts coming out. So that's probably how I start to think about it.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, Gavin Flood. Great talk. As you have scaled, and we've seen you scale over the last number of years, have you had to make any trade-offs between scale and being able to maintain that authenticity that is so important to you? And if you have, would you be able to share any of it?
The thing that by the way, you should say hi to Gavin later because he's so nice. He's the nicest man in the entire world. The thing that I live in fear of more than anything is, you know, we've got these 50,000 folks that we speak to regularly. We've got 250,000 folks on the social media channels. And the thing that I live in fear of more than anything is unintended harm, which is this idea that we go out with the best of intentions. We genuinely try to help people, but like, sometimes we get it wrong, you know, and sometimes we say some words that appear in the wrong order and they cause something to appear wrong in people's minds. So to give an example, at the beginning of the Marketing Meetup newsletters, we have this thing where we say, hi Rich, you resplendent Quetzal, or something like that. It's a whimsical hello where we sort of try and set the tone for the thing. And the number 1 complaint from one of these emails, from one of these greetings that we've ever got is, hi Rich, you orange carrot. Now, that was me writing the newsletter at home in the kitchen. I saw an orange carrot. I wrote down, hi Rich, you orange carrot. But I got like 20 emails back from people saying, it's bringing back childhood memories of being bullied and stuff like that. And that was never the intention. but like there's definitely a holding back that sort of exists when you're sort of sitting there and you're going, I really don't want to harm people, you know, I don't want to cause harm to people. And so I would say the biggest trade-off for me over the course of time has just been like, how can I be respectful but also stand for something? How can I have fun and try to be funny and elevate someone while also not causing harm? And so that, as a balancing point, has probably been the biggest thing for me over the course of this journey, for sure.
Right, I think we're at time. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you, mate.
Told you. Lovely, lovely man.
I told you it was lovely. Right, so next up we have Kay Markey G. Come through,